Hi folks, how are you tonight? John from Designed Elegance Pastry Shop here. We are going to work on our Petit Four project, and along with that we are piggybacking a chocolate frangipan triangle project. So we're doing two shots at once. So in the last lesson we baked our frangipan layers. We put them together with our raspberry on one side and our chocolate on the other. Now those layers have been tucked away in the freezer so they can be completely firm and solid for the next step of our project. So the next thing we need to do is make some Petit Four glaze. Now Petit Four glaze is a lot like just straight up donut glaze. It's just sugar and water, confectioner sugar and water. The key to a good Petit Four glaze is the consistency. So basically I'm going to start with, in my mixing bowl, I'm going to take some water. Okay, now this is not the type of thing that we measure. Okay, we're going to put a little bit of water in, not too much. It's probably about a third a cup, maybe a quarter of a cup to a third of a cup. And then I'm going to add some confectioner sugar. I'm going to add about maybe almost half of this 2-pound bag. Okay, and basically this is kind of a touchy-feely type of thing. We're looking for a specific consistency. We're not looking for a specific amount of glaze, so to speak. So we're using the paddle. Okay, I'm just going to gently mix it. And as you can see, this looks very, very stiff. Okay, so while it's mixing, I'm going to add a little bit of water. Just a little bit. You don't want to stress the mixer by having it try and mix something that's too tight, too stiff. That's a good way to break your mixer. Okay, so I started with water, I added sugar, I added more sugar than I needed to, and now we're smoothing it back out with extra water. Okay, now I'm gonna just add a little bit more speed, get the job done a little quicker. Okay, notice how loose it is. Okay, so now we gotta add a little more sugar. Okay. And notice how tight it's becoming. It's congealing into a thick mass, still very tight. I'm going to add just a little drop here. And then now's a good time. I'm going to add just a touch of vanilla too. This is optional. You don't need to do this, but I think it adds a little extra pizzazz, so I like to do that. So just add a little bit. Okay, notice how it's saucy, how it's but it's viscous too. So what we want to do now is get down to the bottom of the bowl. We'll scrape. Okay. See how stiff it is against the bowl. See the difference? Okay. So we want to get that mixed into the main part of the mix. This way it's all nice and smooth. Now the key to Petit Four glaze is, truth be told, it needs to be stiffer than you think it really needs to be. Okay? As much as you think that it should be as loose or saucy, really if you can spread it real easy, then it's too loose. It should be stiff and hard to work with, to tell you the truth. Okay? Alright. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift this up, and you notice how when it pours in, you can see the lumps. Okay? Basically what you're looking for is for the drips to dissolve in within about 8 to 10 seconds. Okay? See how long it's taking for that to all dissolve in flat? Yeah. That means it's just a touch too tight yet. Okay. Also, I can tell by the way it's by how drippy it is. Okay. So anyway, I'm gonna add just a smidge. Okay, just a wee little bit. Boom. That's probably even too much. And in fact, I know it's too much, so I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit more sugar right now. Just a teeny little bit. All right. Now, hopefully, once we mix this all in, it'll be nice and smooth, and it'll be perfect. All right, let's see how that looks. All right, just from experience, I know that that's a little too tight, so that's probably good. Just a teeny little bit. Mix that in. Here. Okay, see how it pours nice and steady? All right, that's about right. Okay? So we'll just leave that. I'm just going to leave that sit. Okay, now while that's draining, the next step is to get our little squares of Petit Fours ready for glazing. So I'm going to go over to the cooler, grab my pan, okay. This was just wrapped from last time. I haven't done anything with it in the meantime. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is pop this out of the pan. Okay. Now, don't forget our paper. Okay, so we're going to want to pull our paper back. Now we're not going to glaze all these right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to peel the paper back a little bit and leave it on the rest to protect it, so to speak. Okay, so now there's part of it. Now we got paper peeled back on both sides. Okay, now I'm going to take a nice French knife here, and I'm just going to cut the very top off, like so. Okay, now you want to go about an inch by an inch. That's a typical good size. Nice size bite. Okay. All right, so here's two. Now what I'm going to do is take this and just set it back in the pan. Ooh, a little fudge. Okay, this is a little extra piece. And walk with me over to the cooler, please. Thank you. All right. So now, what we want to do is take our two strips. We'll cut that piece off there. Now, I'm not going to cut the other end. I'm just going to go along and wait for that piece to cut itself. Okay. Now I'm just eyeing them. Okay. And this is what I meant where, you know, basically now you got two half pieces if you want. Okay. So now we have our pieces. What we're going to do is we're going to use a screen here. Okay. You want to separate them to where there's just a little bit of area in between each. Okay, and that's so that the glaze can drizzle in between and fall right through. Okay, so basically we have a bunch of Petit Fours here. Now I'm going to take paper here, put it on this way. This way I can catch all my sugar. Okay, now I'm right-handed, so I'm going to put my sugar on my left side, and I'm going to scoop with my right hand. Okay, remember our glaze, nice and stiff. Okay, I like to use a cookie scoop. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just let it drip back and forth. I'm going to basically cover the top and then the sides and then let it drip down. And I'm just going to do one at a time. See, now this is the kind of thing where you want to be patient about it. And sometimes you need to squeeze a little bit of extra on. Okay. See, now I'm obviously putting on a lot more glaze than I need, and that's fine because it's just going to get caught in the paper. And we'll scoop that up and we'll put it back in the bowl. Give it a little stir, and it'll get used right in along with. So there's no waste. They look like little pillows, don't they?
Tasty pillows.
Yes. It's the corners that you really need to focus on, okay? What I like to do is, like I said, I like to go across the top and then around the sides. Okay, and then basically all the way around, and then that hits the corners again. Okay, see, now notice these ones that I did first, they're still dripping. Okay, see how they're still dripping? It takes a little while for them to finish dripping. Okay, and what's going to happen is they're going to end up, you know, the air will start to dry out the sugar coating on the edge. And then what you want is for the Petit Four to be completely encased in the sugar glaze. Okay. And like I said, the most important thing about this little part of the project is patience. You got to just be willing to sit there and let the glaze drip over the way it needs to and hit all the little spots. Okay? And then you just let gravity take care of the rest as it drips down. Look at all that. It looks like a giant glob. But you look at it in about 3 minutes from now, and it's going to look just like all the others. Nice, square, completely enrobed, you know, cloud of yumminess is what it is, really. Okay, almost got it all. Now, one of the things you need to do is, okay, so the camera is looking at the opposite side of what I'm looking at, okay, and I am going to assume, because of my experience, that there are probably a couple of corners that are exposed. So let me see from this side. Yep, there's one right there, there's one right there. It's always the one on the far side that you don't see. Okay, so now you want to hit those sooner than later. Okay, if you let your glaze completely set before you go back and hit those last few little corners, then your glaze isn't going to blend in correctly. You're going to basically see that you went back over it. So you want to avoid that. Okay, here's a corner that really is quite bare. See, so basically I just tried to get that one corner there, and then we'll just let that drip down. Okay. And of course we've got that last one, but look, I'm getting pretty down there, so we'll see here if I can. I'm gonna need to get some off the tray, which is fine. All right, so it's actually good that happened. That way I can demonstrate what happens. Okay. So now one thing is when you're doing the when you're trying to go back and reuse the glaze that's already dripped off of the other ones, a lot of times it will end up being a little stiffer. So sometimes you might need to add a little bit of water to it. Basically the thing to do, if I had a bunch to do, okay, what I would probably want to do would be to stop and then take all the glaze and put it back in the bowl, add just a touch of water and remix the whole thing so that I'm working with good smooth glaze. Okay, so now here we are. All the corners are pretty darn well. They're pretty covered. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now what we're going to do is just let this sit and drizzle and drain. Okay. Basically these are done except for the final part, which would be papering and or garnishing. The garnishing is of course optional, and you know we'd want to paper them for presentation. But these are very wet and tacky right now, so we want to let them sit and we want to let them skin over just a little bit before we try and touch them.